Good afternoon. Welcome to our professional development session for today. And Jade has posted the link to the no stakes pretest for you in the chat room. This is set up so that you will essentially just get feedback as you respond to the questions, and we'll take a look at the analytics that come through on that. So take a minute and go in to check out the questions on that. So our session for today is providing us with some. I had no idea there was this much research available on this topic, as ways that we can guide student learning in easily digestible chunks. And just as, just so that you know, we use WebEx for our video conferencing tool. WebEx is available to us through Canvas. And when you're using WebEx in your course, you would use the one that is listed as Training Center. We are using the one listed as Event Center, which enabled us to have you sign in when you checked in. Additionally, as far as our roles in this WebEx event is we have a moderator and host, and our host for today is Jade, and she is the one who will be communicating with you through the chat room, and also your personal concierge for the course. So she will also be watching to see if you raise your hand and if you want to speak, and we'll also be guiding you, because there's a couple of places where we'll just be asking for comments and questions. So we'll help you with that. As the presenter, I will be speaking freely, of course, and will be sharing my screen. As participants, you can chat in the chat room with the others, and the host can unmute you in order to speak. So that's our basic WebEx information. So now I'm going to take us out and check our results in the pretest. My screen, right? Yeah. So here I have pretest. Okay, one response in here. So I'd love for the others to join in, but what we're going to do is take a look at what the results on that show. So one respondent, and it shows the answers. Thank you, Digna, for joining. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And strategy that you believe the students use most is highlighting their notes in text, which is definitely one that we'll take a look at some comments on that in just a little bit. And the degree that you feel that each of them is effective over time. I mean, there's an effective strategy. Over time, short term works for some students and may not be very effective. And we're going to come back to this, where we will have rephrased the information in a different way. So we'll be doing a post-test at the end. So now let me go back. So now is when I'm going to invite you to open your mic so that we can have some conversation going. So I'm curious about what you feel students report as their most common study strategies, what their goals are for learning, as well as their goals for exams, what your goals are for learning and exams, and thinking about ways that we can bring these goals a little closer together. So so open your mics. Let's have some conversation here. I have a chart that I will show you taken as from student. Yeah, thank you, Jade. Taken from the students' survey, a survey of students that shows what they report as the most common strategies. So I'd like to know what you as instructors feel like your students' goals are for learning, as well as for exams. They may be slightly different. And then let's hear what your goals are for learning, as well as for exams. Any comments? Please feel free to jump right in. So I will jump on and show you, go on into the next one and show you. This is the...
I believe George had Doug had a comment. Students want to pass class by learning material. As instructor, I want to see what they're getting and not getting.
Okay, excellent. So they want to pass the class. Is that right? This was George, right?
No, Doug.
Doug. Okay, thank you, Doug, for joining in today. So you feel that your students want to pass the class by learning the material, and I'm assuming that that's your goal as well. Would that be right?
He said yes.
Okay. And so that's a great perspective. And you teach one of the ethics classes, isn't that right? I believe.
Peace studies.
Peace studies. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think we met when I was up in Jupiter one day with you, and so you've got some pretty powerful content there. And so hopefully your students do want to walk away with a good, solid understanding of that content. This slide is from one of many of the research studies, and I'll be talking more about it in a moment, about a survey from students, the proportion of students, and what they feel, the one on the right is what they feel are the number one strategies, which is rereading essentially. And then the percentages of the students that use the various strategies. And so clearly rereading is the one that they tend to go to. Is it the most beneficial? We'll take a look and see. Any comments on the chart? Does it seem to coincide with what your ideas are on our student needs? Okay, so our challenge then becomes linking up the student skills with our goals, and our goals are for learning. But we want our students to have that as a goal too. However, as we could tell from the other chart, they feel that they can accomplish that by rereading. So let's take a moment, and I'm going to take a moment and take us to the PDF of an infographic. And while I'm doing that, I'd like for you to take your pencil and paper and write down 2 things about the conversations that we had and your thoughts about the answers to those questions, even if you didn't engage in the conversation, what you feel like were the answers to those questions. What our students want to get out of the course, what they want to get from an exam, as well as what we want. So I will, while you're writing those 2 things down, I will take us back into the next item. Okay, and so this is a meta-analysis of effective learning strategy. Okay, so this is a really interesting study that I found. I have both a shortened version, which they published, called Strengthening the Student Toolbox. But I also have the whole meta-analysis, 55 pages, where they analyzed effective learning strategies, and it's fascinating. And like the last 6 pages of it is their whole reference list. So they really did an in-depth analysis. Delansky, this came out in 2013. And what we are looking at is a synopsis of the whole article, which is an analysis of 10 learning strategies that they used. And so we'll take a look at what they determined was the basis for the ones that they included in the analysis. First of all, if it was a strategy that was readily available to as many students as possible. And they actually did not literally use many that were technology based, so that they could reach as many students as possible. They also looked at strategies that were indicated in the research, in the various research articles that they looked at as effective strategies, and they looked at strategies that had been reported by the students. And so the strategies were needless to say, based on the criteria, strategies were varied in the types of learning that were fostered. Some of them were based simply on memory of facts and concepts, which we know is on the lower level in Bloom's. Some were based on actual comprehension of what they had read, which moves us up into the higher level in Bloom's taxonomy. And some were included both. So what we're going to do is take a look at some of those items. The ones that were designated as most effective based on all of the research and the studies that they looked at were designated that way because they were able to help and support students regardless of the age, and that covered a pretty broad age span. But they also look based on strategies that truly enhance the learning and the comprehension across a large range of the content. So, and I've read a good portion of it, and the content ranged from all, across disciplines, but they also use their designation as most effective based on student achievement. And so there are the things that we want as instructors, that we want them to also have a good feel for. Now I'm going to shift this around a little bit, because there we go. How's that for being clever with this? And the two things that were most effective, I'll just go ahead and move it on up, were practice tests. Now, in order to effectively use practice tests, it is really, really crucial to eliminate the fear factor, because the word test, exam, quiz, as we know, strikes fear into all students, to us as we are students as well. And so that's the reason that I focused when I gave you the pretest on the things that are no stakes or low stakes within there. So practice quizzes, ways of just stopping, even at points during the presentation of material, small chunks of material, and then stop and do some sort of a practice test. What's interesting to me, it amazed me actually, is that one of the in the short version of the article, they referenced a study that was done in 1909. In the longer version of the article, they actually mentioned that it had been studied since 1890. And so these practice tests, the results that they found, have provided students with both direct and indirect learning. And the direct learning was when you stop after either the content presentation or after something that they've read, close the book or move away from the content and start jotting down what you know, what you remember from it. So the direct learning is when they then go back and either look at the text or go back to the video, if that's where the content is, or go back into what the instructor is presenting. And if they indeed were accurate in their rendition of what they had been learned. But the indirect learning also was a key to being effective, because if they did not accurately depict what the learning was, then that provided a key for them as to what things that they would need to study. So both of those situations provide a learning opportunity for the students. And it provides them the opportunity to actually test themselves on the information. They also discovered that this practice test really works. The ideal is when it's a written response, jot down short answers or essays, and that's rather than looking at a multiple choice list and identifying the correct one. So practice test in various forms, and I'm going to ask you in a few minutes to think about what some of that might look like for us. The other most effective one was what they're referring to as distributed learning. And so this is when the content and the review of the content is spread out over time. And so it's practice, step away from it for a day or a period of time, then go back to it and review. And so it definitely is not what they refer to as massed practice. The exam is tomorrow, and so we're going to spend 4 or 5 hours cramming. Now, in many cases, that cramming did provide a reasonable score on the exam, but the material was totally lost. And we've all heard the comments based on, yeah, I forgot it as soon as I walked out the door, right? So cramming, while it might get the score that they want on an exam, doesn't support learning. And what's interesting is that there's a great deal of empirical evidence about distributed learning. And what's really interesting and what was intriguing to me is that we do this all the time, but we don't make that connection to learning. When we are, one of the examples that they used is sports and dance, which of course is athletic as well. But a dancer or an athlete doesn't spend their time right before the game learning how to play it. It's spread out over time. The dancer doesn't decide to spend the night before the performance learning the routine. It's spread out over time. The other example that they used, and I know we have plenty of gamers in our community, and that is truly how the gaming situation is set up. That you work on a level, you go back to it if you didn't get through to the next level. And most of us know that by the end of an evening spent in whatever we're focused on, we get tired and go to bed. And I love when I wake up then the next morning and all of a sudden it pops into my head, oh, that's what I should have done on that. And so it works for other skills. We just don't often think of it in terms of working for our studying. And the difference in the time spent cramming and the time spent repeated over time is truly almost exactly the same. But the time spent over time, say you spend 4 hours cramming the night before the test, and that's probably an underestimate, right? where instead of that, if you had spent an hour one day, skip a day, an hour the next, skip a day, and an hour the next, you would have spent the same amount of time ultimately, but have learned and have it more there within your serious learning and accessible when you are taking the test or whatever your performance strategy is. So I thought that was some really interesting stuff that I picked up from this research. Interestingly, guess what proved to be least effective? Rereading is absolutely one of the least effective ways of studying for a test. And the reason for that is it provides a false sense of security. When you reread it over time, multiple times, in the same sitting, you feel like, yeah, I got this, I know it. And yet when you have to recall it, all you did was reread it. The recalling from your memory is what strengthens those neural passageways in order to retrieve it when you do need it. Highlighting, I don't have one sitting here with me, but we all use highlighters. And unless it's done with intent and with some sort of coding so that you know why you highlighted that. And we all have seen students where the whole textbook is highlighted, right? So what's the point? What has that accomplished for us? Highlighting or post-it notes on a page to identify what the key thing is so that you can go back and do a self-test. Take that post-it note or the highlighting off, close the book and say, okay, what do I know about this is a way to make that effective. Summarizing is also one of the least effective ones, and mnemonics is also a least effective. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is to think and write on your paper in front of you what key points you might have gotten from this part of it, but also what tools we can incorporate to make this happen online, because that's what we're talking about here is our online classes. And so while you're jotting down, I am going to move us back into our PowerPoint.
Oh, Judy, Doug made an interesting comment.
Yes.
Distributed learning, true for writing papers too. Best to write a paper over the semester a little at a time rather than in an all-nighter before the due date.
Well, I'm sure you know the answer to that. I would say absolutely yes. And as the instructor, you could provide some guidance into, and in fact, many instructors do say, okay, your abstract is due 1 week, and your reference list is due another week, and an annotated bibliography, and then an idea of your notes. But yeah, sitting down and writing all at one one all-nighter before it's due is probably one of the least effective ways of writing. That said, we've all done it. We have all done it. And I will be the first one to confess that that I am really guilty of the rereading and rewriting thing. And I did that on an exam that was pretty important. I won't confess any more than that. But I did have to retake one of the questions in it. So while you're jotting down, and thank you, Doug, for that comment. Yes, yeah, as we know, that's definitely something to do an effective paper. We need to spread it out over time. And so I'm going to invite you again to open your mics, share anything that you may have, any revelations or aha moments that you may have had, but also let's have a conversation about the tools that we might be able to use for effective strategies for our online students. That's part of the reason I used the Google quiz, the Google Forms quiz format to create your pre and post test, just as a means of trying to share one tool with you. But what are some others? What else have you used or do you think would work well for online?
Lisa, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, I was thinking, Judy, that, and I completely forgot about this until you started to talk about the sticky notes.
Yeah.
Padlet, I think. I've used it. I taught a course back in the winter, during the winter, graduate course, and I had students add to each other's thoughts using Padlet in a sticky note style. And I wasn't sure whether or not they would get the big bang for the buck, but they ended up getting a lot out of it. And actually, that was one of the highlights for them. And it was because it was easy. They could log on quickly. They had a specific focus. It was on multicultural education. They had a very specific topic, and they were able to go in and add their thinking and check with each other in terms of, were they on the right page? And they helped each other make connections. And that was easy. Everybody had a link. They could just connect right to it, and that worked. That worked for my graduates.
Yeah, Padlet is a really effective tool, and we use it a lot in here for a lot of different things, and I use it pretty much in any course that I teach. I have them go in and use Padlet at least once during the semester. Yeah, it's definitely an effective tool. Any other ideas? I am going to, while I'm waiting for you to respond, and just raise your hand and let Jade know if you want to jump in there, because she can shut me up in a heartbeat, right, Jade? We used to have access to a tool where we could put our videos in and stop it and pause it, have them, ask a question about the comments on there. And that particular tool has not been available to us now for quite a while, well over a year. And we all lamented the loss of it. And we have tried a number of other ones to do that. And I just, like at 2 a.m. this morning, although I didn't hear it come in at 2 a.m., but when I saw my email, just got a message from another tool called Play Pose It that I have used. And my issue with that one is that in order to use it, I had to submit my class list. But the message that came in from them this morning is that it is now available through Canvas. So, and that would take care of the concern about the student list, because if they access it through Canvas, then they're in there. So I'm going to go back and check that one out. I've used Play Pose It a couple of times, and it seems to work in the same way. It's just not quite as convenient, and I just didn't care for the fact that I needed to submit my class list to them, which I didn't with the other tool that we used. So that's one that I will be trying out and reporting back to you. Any other ideas? Ways that we can do the distributed learning or practice quizzes online. One of the thoughts that they had was the use of flashcards, and I know we have StudyMate available to us, and I'm not sure of the effectiveness of that. But what the research indicated, that using flashcards is definitely one form of a practice quiz, provided it is used in a way you read the question and either come up with the response in your head or write it down before you flip it over and look at it. And writing it down, of course, would be an effective way. But they did not, they said that just reading it and then testing yourself by looking at the answer on the back isn't the most effective. So that's one tool. Anything else that anybody wants to add?
I have a question, Judy.
Yeah.
So this is Lisa. Is there a place where folks can go to find online tools? Like, how would someone know where to look for any of these online pieces to help students? Is there a go-to place for any of these?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We have access in Canvas to the tools, LTI tools. Isn't that the right? We have access in Canvas to the tools that have been made available to us in there. But as far as figuring out other ones, that's essentially where we try to share things out as we discover them within our communities. Hey, I tried this and it works, and that's part of what we do with this PD sessions. Is
right.
Things that we try, things that we've discovered, things that someone mentions to us. Almost anytime we have something mentioned. I even have a discussion board posted in my class of, if you have seen or heard of a tool that you want us to try, because I try to incorporate as many different tools as I can in the class, because that's a safe environment to try new things out for the students. So anything that is out there, Life Binders might be a good place to find.
Oh, right.
Tools. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. So, and that's often a go-to for me. Good question, though. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about Live Binder. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I reference that in my classes as well. So you may be wondering, I said that there were 10 strategies that they tested in that survey, that meta-analysis of surveys, and we talked about the two most effective and referenced the least effective ones. So what I have now is their chart. And by the way, all of this is Creative Commons, available through Creative Commons. So this is from the 10 tools that they tested in the survey, which ones were the effectiveness of each one, and I think they're all listed in order. And so the practice testing and distributed practice were the two most. The interleaved practice, which I have read in some of the other research as also being effective, but in their research, they said they felt like it needed more in-depth to find out about that. And then the others, again, I just thought this was interesting that they provided a chart for all the 10 that they referenced in that article. And I will be sending out a reference list after this session. I have the two primary websites listed for you in this. And then, and this, the Make It Stick book is one of the things that is listed in there. And what I have next is just okay, thank you. What I have listed for you is, or what my next slide is, a sketch note from one of the chapters. That through one of the websites, and I'm going to show you, they have sketch notes for each chapter. So this is one of the sketch notes from Make It Stick, Chapter 8, where they give tips for students, tips for trainers, and especially tips for teachers for how to use that. And to me, this is how I prefer to get and share my information, but I know it's not for everybody. So Jade, if you'll post the second quiz link, please. I'm going to put it up, but I want everyone to have a chance to go to your post-test. And what I have done, you will see the same topics in there, but I've changed the wording a little bit around to reflect the fact that we have now had some conversations about it. So hopefully you'll have some idea of what some of the responses. And I've changed the feedback on there because the feedback is such a key component, especially on the practice quizzes. Getting feedback so that you know what was right, yeah, good for me, and what needs to be reviewed and studied. So I'm going to invite you to go to the post-test and take. There's only 2 questions on there, so it'll take a short amount of time for you. And I am going to. While you're doing that, I think that I will show you just the links to the 2 websites. And we're going to check our results, but we'll come back to that. Retrievalpractice.org, and that's where a lot of the material has come from, and then learningscientist.org. And both of those, first of all, are Creative Commons licensed for all of the information that's in there. But it also has a lot of downloadable items. That sketchnote page from the Make It Stick book is from that one as well. So that's, hopefully you've had a chance to go into the post-test, and let's see what kind of results we have. There it is. Okay, so keep jotting down. I'll move this somewhere. There, now you should be able to see. So I'm inviting you to continue. And that's okay, Lisa. That's all right. I'll send you the link so you can take the pre-test, but hopefully that, yeah. That way you can get a good score on the pre-test. These are intentionally absolutely no stakes responses.
That's too funny.
I know, yeah. But being the creatures that we are, right? All right, so I'm going to, I'd like to see a few more people responding, but I'm still going to go in so that I can show you how they, on the Google quiz, it's a variation on Google Forms, and they they provide you with the charts and the graphs on the analytics. So the points distribution, we didn't have any points, so that didn't matter, and the strategy that we believe most students use, and we do know that rereading the notes in the test is the text or their notes is one of the things that students tend to think, for whatever, just because that's what people have done forever. But the degree to which you feel like they are effective strategies, rereading the notes in the text is not a very effective strategy, and effective self-testing, which we now know is a much more effective strategy. Highlighting and the notes in the text is not very effective. However, it's something that could be effective over a short term, as well as cramming. It may work for some students in the short term, but it is, in the overall, as far as learning, not a very effective strategy. And studying over time is also one of the more effective strategies. Sure. Go ahead, Lisa. How can I help you?
Well, and I'm sorry I had to join a little late, so I apologize if I missed, if you've said this, but I'm wondering if in the study or in any of the other research you've done, if you found connections to these effective strategies and how someone would identify as a learner. So, for example, if someone believes that they are much more of a visual learner, would they tend to want to participate in a certain type of activity? Like, I don't know, even though maybe it's cramming, we know it's not the most effective thing someone can do. I'm wondering if you, as a teacher, you get to know your students so that you can differentiate for them as much, and even adult learners, right? We need to make sure we're differentiating for them. And sometimes one strategy, whether it's an effective practice or not, sometimes it just doesn't fit. And I'm wondering if you read anything about that.
One of the studies that they did looked at using concept maps as a study piece. And what they discovered was that if the students looked at the text, and created their concept maps based on looking at the text, it was not as effective as the other strategies of self-quizzing or testing over time. If indeed, when they were creating their initial concept maps, if they read the text, closed the book, and then did their concept map, it proved to be more effective on the exam. And the exam was one part of the exam was creating a concept map over that. So that would link to the visual, and it also links to how we use that particular tool. Not everybody's comfortable with that particular type of a tool. But that was the only one I saw that it really addressed learning styles. But they also were not doing. None of them literally tested reading skills. So that would be another link to learning styles. But those were the only ones that really had any connection to any.
Yeah, I mean, the reading is always a concern, right?
Yes.
They can't, if they're not able to read, which many of our students struggle with, then they're not able to, grasp and learn as much as they need to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they struggle with it no matter what age level they are. I mean, we have college students as well that do. So I will be sending out not the full list of references, because there's quite a few, but the key ones for you so that you can take a look at them, including these two websites, because both of them are really worth taking a deeper dive, a look into. Have some great strategies. And so what I am going to do now, typically at the end of our sessions, we let you know what the next sessions coming up are. And so first of all, next Monday is a university holiday, and we will not be presenting a session. And then the following Monday starts our summer e-certification workshop. And so we will not be doing a PD session that day, but we will be doing the orientation for those in the summer workshop. So we are suggesting that anybody who is joining us today, if you would be interested in registering to be a part of that e-certification workshop, please feel free. And I believe that Jada is posting the link in the chat room for you as well. If you have already done that, I take the link anyway and share it with colleagues. And so on that day, we will be doing an orientation in the morning, but it can be face-to-face in our actual training room. It can be virtual, the same way you're joining in with this, or if that time frame doesn't work for you, just reach out to us and let us know, and any of our facilitators will be available to let you know, to work with you, sit down with you, and give you the orientation for the certification workshop. It's a basic pedagogical foundation for some good basic knowledge on online learning and how to incorporate some of the quality components into your online course. So we invite anyone and everyone to join in with us. And so that said, I am going to thank you for joining in with me today. This has been fun. There's way more information on this topic than I have been able to share with you today, and I find it all really fascinating. So we may do a follow-up session on it at some point. So thank you for joining, and I appreciate your comments and your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Judy. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you,
you.
Jay. Thanks for your help.